Hey folks, welcome back again to the Movie NP, the vlog where we review movies, analyze them, and I'll give you some life hacks that we can find from these films. So tonight's film we're going to review is called Until Dawn. It was released in April of 2025. It actually serves as a prequel in some ways to a video game of the same name that was released in 2015. So the movie is rated R. It is 1 hour and 43 minutes long. Carries an IMDb rating of 5.7 and carries a Rotten Tomatoes rating of 51%. Now, I don't agree with these ratings whatsoever. I thought this was a really good movie and I thought it was unique, and whoever wrote this film must be huge fans. The writer and the director must be huge fans of the horror genre, because it really pays homage to a lot of classic horror films here. So it is directed by David Sandberg, written by Gary Doberman and Blair Butler. It stars Ella Rubin, Michael Cimino, and Odessa Azion. So here's the setup for the film. What has happened here is Clover's the main character, and Clover's sister has mysteriously disappeared. We find out about a year earlier from the start of the film that their mother has died, and Melanie leaves home out of grief and Clover stays at home. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, Melanie mysteriously disappears, and over the course of this last year, Clover has been searching for her. Fast forward to the present day and the start of the film, and Clover and her friends have narrowed it down to this remote gas station / convenience store in the middle of nowhere. And they find out that there's a town or abandoned town down the road called Glore Valley, where a lot of people have gone missing. And unfortunately for them, they decide to go down to that town to search for Melanie. So, spoiler alert, the film starts out where you see Melanie running away from some masked murderer with a clown mask on. She gets away but then stumbles. He comes up with a pickaxe. She begs him, please don't kill me again. I can't die again. And he ends up murdering her with the pickaxe. Flash forward to present day, where we see Clover and her friends driving on down the road, and they pull into the parking lot of this remote gas station / convenience store. So Clover decides to go into the store and meets up with its older gentleman who is the clerk, and she tells him a brief story, and he says that there's a abandoned town down the road called Glore Valley, and a lot of people have gone missing down there. So if her sister's gone missing, most likely it's because she went down there. So what do? Of course, they jump in their vehicle and they all head down to Glore Valley. So as they're heading down there, they're driving through this crazy storm. It's just one of those rainstorms where the windshield wipers can't even keep up with the rain coming down. And the road ends into the parking lot of its welcome center for Glore Valley. And interestingly enough, the rain just stops. It's like there's a barrier around its parking lot. And they find that strange, but they go into the welcome center anyway. So they get into the welcome center, and it's abandoned. It's like time has stopped. It's like it's been frozen in time. There's a calendar on the wall for, I think, 1982. The one character decides she's going to sign her name in the visitor book, and then she realizes that there's a lot of people that have signed their name multiple times, and in fact, Melanie is one of them. So about the same time, what occurs is another one of the characters wanders into the back of the building and finds a bunch of missing posters with a bunch of people's faces on them. What they find odd about these is that there's no contact information, there's no names, just a picture of them that says missing. So one of them says, hey, let's get out of here. This place is weird. And the other one says, you know what? We need to stick around because this rain is crazy and I'm not driving through that again. Well, that ends up being a huge mistake, folks, because what they don't realize is on the wall is this hourglass looking device with a geared mechanism. And as soon as the sun goes down, this thing automatically turns around and the sand starts pouring through. So soon after that, it's mass murder with a clown mask shows up and brutally murders everyone there. But interestingly enough, as soon as the last person is murdered, we flash back again to the girl signing the visitor's book, but this time she's signing it for the second time. So everybody realizes, whoa, it was just like experienced deja vu. But then they realize, no, it wasn't deja vu. That really happened. They were all murdered. And now time seems to be repeating itself. So they find out that what is occurring here is that they are stuck in this time loop. The town of Glore Valley was an old mining town that had a mine underneath it, and for whatever reason they accidentally mined too close to the surface and the whole town fell into the mine. So this ended up trapping a bunch of miners down there who ended up dying. So somewhere along the line, this brought in a psychologist, Dr. Hill, who showed up to provide grief counseling and crisis management. We find out later that Dr. Hill is the same guy as the attendant at the gas station. So through a series of clues, they discover that what is occurring is this is all repeating itself like Groundhog Day, and the only way out of it to break this cycle and to escape is to survive through the night until dawn. So following the second night, they decide one of the best ways to survive till dawn is to barricade themselves into the bathroom of the Welcome Center and just all hang out there. Unfortunately, one of them decides to drink some water from the faucet, and everyone has some water, and what they don't know is that the water causes them to spontaneously explode. So this keeps on repeating a couple times, and what is I find really cool is we go through multiple genres of horror films. We have the slasher, we have the supernatural or paranormal, we have the zombie type characters. And in fact, what happens is we learn that if they do not escape, eventually they only have 13 nights for this to occur, because they discovered that all the people in this book that have signed multiple times, they've only signed 13 times. And if they do not escape, what happens is they turn into these evil Wendigo creatures, which are the zombie-like creatures, which ends up being a mythological evil creature or spirit, which we'll talk a little bit more about that. But they have to escape or they turn into one of these. So about 3/4 of the way through the film, they find a video that shows that Dr. Hill has been experimenting on people. They also, he also communicates to them through the radio, basically giving them some clues. They also find a map of the town. So one of the buildings on the map is an asylum, which they believe where Dr. Hill is doing his experiments. There's a scene where Dr. Hill tells her that he has to come find him and that he's out in the woods and he might actually allow her to see her sister. And in exploring the woods, she accidentally gets her legs caught in like a bear trap, which is connected to a chain. This chain runs into a cave, and she's slowly being pulled into this cave. And she's actually completely pulled into the cave. But then, not long after, there's another scene where she comes crawling out of the cave. So somehow she survived this episode. And what we've discovered is that in this cave is actually her sister, or the Wendigo form of her sister. So how did she escape that? I'm not exactly sure. It's kind of one of those things that you just gotta say, okay, well that's kind of a continuity issue, but this is a movie after all. Another thing that I find really cool is with each loop, each night, the town is basically kind of rebuilding itself. So after the episode of Clover trying to track down and meet Dr. Hill in the woods, they discover that they weren't really paying attention, and now it is night 13, and they realize that the people that have signed the visitor book, those that have signed multiple times, have only done so 13 times. So they realize that if they don't escape tonight, they're going to forever be damned and stuck there, and they're going to become Wendigos. So one of the characters has recorded on his cell phone the montage of the nights that we didn't really get to see, and they come up with the idea that they have to go down into the mines and make their way to the asylum to confront Dr. Hill. So they decide to go off and do so. They end up getting caught up with a bunch of Wendigos or zombies. They tell Clover, go ahead. Clover goes ahead on her own, and at one point in time, Clover has to confront her sister. So as part of all this, she realizes the only way that she can survive is she has to kill her sister to make it to Dr. Hill. So she does. She ends up pushing her sister down, and her sister falls onto like a spike that's in the ground. And Clover is then able to get away from her sister. Clover then makes her way to the asylum. She finds that her friend has been captured by Dr. Hill, and she decides she's going to go try to find the keys. In doing so, she finds Dr. Hill's office and the keys, and now she is confronted by Dr. Hill. Dr. Hill tells her that what has occurred here is due to the trauma that has occurred to the town, and his studying of fear and bringing fear to the table. Those two things are combined to create this curse that has captured all these people, or trapped all these people into this town, and it just keeps on feeding on itself. The trauma causes the fear causes the trauma. They capture more people. Those people become caught up in the whole scheme of things. They become Wendigos, and then they then trap and attack the next group of people that come in. So in addition, Dr. Hill tells her that this has all been a manifestation of her trauma, that basically she is the engine that is creating this, and that although it's all real, her trauma and her emotions are what is setting up what is the mechanism of death each cycle. So we noticed that Dr. Hill came in with a mug of coffee. She notices that there's water dripping from the ceiling. So, with him not looking, she scoots the coffee cup underneath the water. The water drips into the coffee. She scoots it back. He unknowingly takes a sip of the coffee. And guess what? Within a few moments, he explodes. She grabs the keys. She releases her friend. They run out of there. And the very last scene is her crawling out of a grave that is very reminiscent of the poster for the original Evil Dead film from 1981. So they break the cycle. Everyone's fine. Everyone survived and they get to leave. But soon after, we see the bank of video monitors that were noted to be in Dr. Hill's office, and you see a cabin covered in snow and another vehicle pull up to that cabin, and that sparks the beginning of the video game. So one big question I have, which again I think is a continuity issue, is I'm not sure how killing Dr. Hill breaks that cycle, but apparently confronting him and killing him had something to do with breaking the cycle. So that leaves me a little baffled. But again, it's a movie, so you have to accept some of this is the fiction that it is, right? But again, I really did like this film. I think the film really was the underlying message of the film is about grief and loss, and how if we allow grief to consume us and we do not properly go through the stages of grief and progress through them, that somewhere we're going to get stuck into this loop, which is going to ultimately destroy our lives. So other than the whole grief equation, what other life hacks can we learn from this film? Well, I think there's quite a few. So the first life hack is that our decisions have consequences. The video game and the film is very much based on this same premise. It's kind of the butterfly effect. That one decision can trigger multiple events and future events that might be good, might be bad. So the point is that even under pressure, we need to take the time to slow our breathing down, take some deep breaths, and think through these things before we make a decision. A quote from Teddy Roosevelt is, "In the moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing." So life hack number 2 is to face your fears to break the loop. We see this in the film with Clover. Clover does not break the loop until she faces her trauma and she faces her grief. And we see this in several parts of the film. We see this with facing her sister and ultimately realizing that she cannot save her. And the other part is facing Dr. Hill, which also symbolizes her trauma and guilt. And we've talked about this before. We do not grow until we put ourselves outside of our comfort zone. If all we do is we stay in our nice little comfy comfort zone, we're never going to progress. We're never going to grow. We're never going to become what we ultimately want to be. So avoiding pain keeps you stuck. Confronting your fears through reflection, therapy, or action is how you break the loop in your own life. And there's a quote here from Joseph Campbell: "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasures you seek." So life hack number 3 is teamwork can either save you or destroy you. Lack of communication, lack of trust, relying on the wrong people. These are all things that can chip away at your success and destroy you. I find that one thing you can do here is to set clear expectations of people, set clear rules of what each person on the team is supposed to be doing, and never ever make knee-jerk reactions out of panic. Always work through them with your team, question your team, and that whole servant leadership thing that I talk about several times in several other videos, and that the best people to fix a problem are the people that are actually doing the work. So I think oftentimes as leaders we kind of think we know everything, um, and unfortunately we don't. And the best way to learn things is to learn them from the people that actually do the work. So here's a quote from Henry Ford: "If everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself." So life hack number 4 is information equals survival. So we see this through the film. There are several clues. I wish in the film, I really wish they would have expanded this that search for Dr. Hill. I kind of think that somewhere in the middle of the film we kind of went sideways, and I think it would have been more enjoyable if we saw another 1 or 2 episodes of them trying, a full episode of them trying to get to Dr. Hill and coming upon more clues. So we see that this group is maybe the only group that we know of who has ever gotten out of the loop. And how did they do so? They did so by educating themselves, seeking out clues, and systematically working on the problem to find the solution. So in your own life, be curious, collect data, try to get all the information you can before making a decision. Make informed decisions. So how can we apply this to our lives? Always remain curious, collect data, research, investigate before making major life or career decisions. Knowledge equals power. Knowledge reduces risk. Now, there is one small downside to this, and that I want to point out, in that we don't want to become paralyzed through analysis. Okay, so yeah, it's great to have knowledge. We need knowledge, but we can't know everything. So there does have to be a point where you do have to make that decision. But the point is try to make that decision as informed as possible, and just don't make knee-jerk reactions or decisions. And here's a quote by Benjamin Franklin: "An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." Life hack number 5 is own the consequences. Own the mistakes. Take radical responsibility. Always admit to the mistake. I find that people want to hide their mistakes, but that's really ends up being the wrong thing to do. One of the things I find is by taking responsibility, we can better learn from our mistakes and move forward. It also keeps the focus on you, and really it's the mature thing to do. It's very immature to blame others. And so I think that owning the mistake and taking the responsibility sets you apart, because it shows that you're a very responsible individual. It shows that you are mature, and it shows that not only are you not afraid to make a mistake, but that you can learn from your mistakes and move on. Here's a quote by Jean-Paul Sartre, which says, "We are our choices." Life hack number 6 is that unresolved guilt can destroy you. Again, we see this in the film. We see that Clover's guilt about her sister missing is what manifests a lot of these supernatural occurrences, and how people die, and why they're stuck in this loop. So you have to acknowledge your regrets, seek closure for your regrets, and ultimately forgive yourself to be able to move on. And here's a quote by Isabel Holland. Guilt is the price we pay willingly for doing what we are going to do anyway. Life hack number 7 is having the majority to realize that you might be the monster, that your choices, that your decisions, they're your actions, your resistance to take responsibility could be what's leading to your stunted growth. Negative emotions like revenge, greed, denial, all these things can suck you down real quick. So how do we avoid this or address it so we can move beyond it? First off is just being brutally honest with yourself, realizing that you might be part of the problem. We know that you cannot get better until you realize that, number one, step one of anything is realizing that I have a problem. Step 2 is then actually doing something about it. So the step 2 part is doing the shadow work. Again, I've talked about this in other videos, but shadow work is very powerful, and learning to become comfortable with those uncomfortable parts of yourselves. And Carl Jung is quoted as saying, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Life hack number 8 is that adaptation is the key to success. We have to adapt to change. There is one constant in life, and that is change. And we just have to become comfortable with that. Again, becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable. We need to adapt to change quickly. We need to learn how to do that. We often misquote Darwin as saying that the survival of the fittest, but it's not the fittest that survive. It's those that are most easily adaptable that survive. So the key here is stop waiting for ideal conditions. If you have an idea, if you have a desire to go to school, you have a desire to start some type of business, the best thing you can do is act, adapt, figure it out on the way, because again, it goes back to that paralysis through analysis. If you sit there and think that I can't do this because I need to learn everything there is before I do it, then you've already set yourself up for failure. You need to act, adapt, and adjust. This is the cycle of quality improvement. Plan, do, study, act. It's the exact same thing. And here's the actual quote from Charles Darwin. "It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." Life hack number 9 is to take heed of warnings and listen to your intuition. In the film, the characters continue to ignore warning signs. There's several scenes where they walk into darkened rooms. The rain in and of itself was probably enough to say, you know what, let's turn back and go home. Matter of fact, there's even in the beginning of the film, they don't show it, but they mention that they've stopped several times to go back, and they keep on turning around. Maybe the second time you did that, maybe it was a warning sign that, maybe you shouldn't be here. Maybe you just need to go home. I think that gut feeling, we really need to learn to be comfortable with that. There's actual data out there that shows that going with your gut feeling with things is usually the right things. Case in point with standardized testing, they tell you that if you don't know what the answer is, that usually your first guess is the accurate one. And they've studied this, and they've shown that people who have gone with their gut and chose the answer it's oftentimes correct. But sometimes people go back and they change their answers on these things, and that's the worst thing you can do. When I take one of those standardized tests, I get through that thing as quickly as possible, and because I know that my first intuition is the most accurate, that I never ever go back and change an answer. So here's a quote by Dean Koontz: "Intuition is seeing with the soul." So here's some phenomenon, kind of as bonus material I wanted to talk about. First off, the film builds its whole structure around the theory of emotional residue theory. This is the idea that our emotions can leave residue in an area, and Dr. Hill basically says this. He says that the trauma of the town collapsing and the miners getting trapped and dying, that has caused the emotional residue that, coupled by fear, is causing people to get trapped, and then feeding on itself. So this is also known as the stone tape theory, and again, this is the idea that our emotions or the environment around us can act like a recording for our emotions, and traumatic events, horrible deaths, all of that type of stuff can get imprinted on the environment, and that can also lead to what they call residual hauntings. These are things, it's like just it's like the ghost has been recorded in the environment, like on a tape, where just like a VCR or a DVD, it just keeps on repeating itself. There's no intelligence behind it. It's just like watching a video or a TV episode. And some people are just sensitive and able to pick up these things. There are 5 stages of grief, which are denial, bargaining, anger, depression, and acceptance. And we see in this film that basically Clover goes through all of these stages, one way or another, but she gets stuck, and that is what is the catalyst for all of this occurring. Now, people often get stuck in grief, especially with the loss of a loved one, and I just kind of stumbled on this interesting therapeutic approach that I'm just now learning about, called Induced After Death Communication Therapy, or IADC, springboards off of a type of therapy called EMDR, which basically has you face the trauma or remember the trauma while you're moving your eyes. And there's a theory that somehow this helps process the trauma and the memories. Well, induced after death communication builds its theories from the EMDR. And I will leave some links to that information if anyone is interested. And lastly, the Wendigos I thought was interesting. I thought this was a unique angle that the film took, because typically it's just your generic zombies, but in the film the zombie like characters are these Wendigos, or these evil spirits. So a little information on the Wendigos is that they are mythical evil creatures or spirits of the Algonquin Native American peoples. They have human-like characteristics, but they are extremely thin and gaunt, often with bones like protruding through their skin. In addition, they are cannibalistic, or they eat people. Now, the theories of how these creatures are created vary. Some theories suggest that the spirit, that's evil spirit, possesses individuals, or due to the sins or misdoing of the individual, that individual actually becomes or evolves into this Wendigo type creature that then feeds and attacks others. I also find it interesting that the Wendigos are used in this film rather than your generic zombies, because not only are they cannibalistic, but they actually are created by these negative emotions, which the whole premise of this film seems to be built on, is that um, Clover's guilt, her grief, her depression, uh, all feeds into this town and what is creating these monsters and creating the loops. So, again, I don't agree with the IMDb rating or the uh, Rotten Tomatoes rating. I thought this was a very unique horror film. Uh, I thought that it had a good story. I would have liked to had some of the stuff explained a little bit more, but it was okay the way it was. Um, and it really, if you're into horror films, again, I mean, it really pays homage to a lot of films, whether it be The Evil Dead, whether it be Cabin in the Woods. It goes that whole premise of a group of friends. You've got the slasher um, angle. You've got the supernatural horror haunting angle. I think one of the things is missing, and I would have liked to see more, was an actual exploration of the town. Uh, they show you that the town is like rebuilding itself or popping up with each cycle, like the town is actually feeding on them. So I really would have liked to have seen that explored a little bit more. But all in all, again, I thought this was a very interesting film, and I really do hope you check it out. So I really hope that you liked the review tonight. I hope you found it beneficial. I hope you learned something from it. And I really do hope you check out this movie. It is available right now on Netflix. It's also available for purchase or rental on Fandango at home. Please like, subscribe, comment, tell your friends. And my prescription is check out 2 of these movies and call me in the morning.